All right. Hello, students. We are welcome to another wonderful time together. Today we are looking at the topic respiratory system of man. And at the end of this lesson, you will be able to state the types of organs that makes up the respiratory system of man, and you'll be able to describe the breathing mechanism in man. Now let's look at the organ of respiratory system, the organs that consist the respiratory system of man. In our previous classes lesson, we've talked about organization of life, and if we can still recollect, we said that similar cells performing the same function, they are referred to as tissue, and similar tissue performing the same function, they are referred to as organ. Then when we now have different organs that comes together to perform a function, it is known as system. And we have different types of system in the body: skeletal system, transport system, respiratory system that we are looking at today, excretory system. So when we are talking of organs now, I think we know where we're coming from. So let's see the organs that makes up the respiratory system in man. The first one we're looking at is your nose, your pharynx, your larynx. We're still going to see their function as we move on. Your nose, your larynx, your pharynx, your trachea, your bronchi, and your lungs. All right, let's see the airway. When we take in our oxygen, how does it go? That's the meaning of airway, the passage that it goes through. So the first one, when we take in our air from the nostril, which is like the external part, all right, it goes from the nose, then it goes through the larynx, then through your trachea. You can see the arrow. Then through your trachea, then to your bronchi, then from there to your bronchial, then to your alveoli. Don't worry, the word might sound a little bit strange, but don't worry, we are still going to look at each one of them, and we're going to see their function one after the other. All right, so let's see the function. Of course, our nose. All right, so what's the function of our nose? Don't forget, when we're treating characteristics of respiratory system or organs, we said that they are usually moist. And what's the function of why does it have to be moist? Why does it have to be wet? All right, to allow for dissolving of whether any of the gases that it is going to transport, whether oxygen, whether carbon dioxide. The surface of your respiratory organ must always be moist. So our nose or our nasal cavity is usually, what's the function? It's usually moist, and what it does is that it helps us to filter the air that comes into our nose, and also moisten. The place is usually moistened, so it allows for dissolving. It also helps to filter dust, all right, from air. While we are breathing in our air, we take in dust, so it helps to filter the air that comes in, to separate the dust, all right, from the gas that is actually necessary for cellular respiration in our body. Then the next one we want to look at is our pharynx, which is like the throat part, and that's where it's like a passage for air. It leads to our trachea. All right. Then from there we have our larynx. Our larynx is like the voice box. All right. That's where the vocal cords, like you can hear me, where the vocal cords are located. Then we have the trachea. The trachea is like a windpipe. That's our windpipe. Let me take us back to that diagram. That's our trachea. You can see the structure. Let me highlight it. All right. You can see that's our trachea. It's about 10 centimeter long in man. All right, and it has cartilages around them. That's what gives it that round ring shape. So it's the cartilages that helps in giving it structure and support so that it does not collapse. Let's move on. Then our trachea leads into the bronchi. All right, our bronchi is like two branches at the end of the trachea that leads into the lungs. Let's still go back to that first structure. All right, so we can see that Y shape structure. All right, it leads into our lungs, and the lungs, that's the purple part. The purple part, that's our lungs. Let me highlight it. All right, here, that's our lungs. All right, let's move on. Sorry, I have to go back to that slide. Then inside the lungs now, we have what we call the bronchi. The bronchial rather, okay, sorry, we've left the bronchi leads to the bronchial. Then the bronchial is like a network. All right, network. Your bronchi actually splits into many parts. All right, into many parts. So your bronchi leads to your bronchial, and your bronchial will now lead to what we call air sac. Your air sac is like a structure. I think I have it in the front here. All right, yes, this is your air sac. This is your bronchi. You can see it's like the end part of your bronchi. That's your bronchial. Let me highlight that. All right, this is our bronchial. All right, you can see your your bronchial leading to something like an air sac. All right, now our air sac is made up of clusters of alveoli. All right, and what's the function of that alveoli? That is where exchange of gas really takes place, where oxygen leaves, gets into the body, into the blood, and your carbon dioxide leaves the blood. All right, let's move on. Let's quickly run through the breathing mechanism in man. We have two phases. We have the inspiration and the expiration. Inspiration is when you take in your air like this, and we have the expiration when you blow out or you let out the air that you have taken in. Now let's see what happens during inspiration. When you take in your air, three things happen. Your diaphragm is just like a thin partition between your chest and your abdomen. All right, so your diaphragm and your intercostal muscles. All right, your intercostal muscles, those are the muscles between your ribs here. Those are your intercostal muscles. They contrast. All right, as you can see, they contrast. Then your thoracic cavity is the space between your ribs. All right, you can see when you take in your air, your thoracic cavity increases. All right, it increases, and external air is pulled into your lungs. Now let's take that again. When you take in your air, you can see your intercostal muscles and your diaphragm. You can see there is a raise. All right, then the size of the thoracic cavity also increases, and the internal air, all right, from outside is pulled into the lungs. All right, that's what happens during your inspiration. Let's see what happens during expiration. During expiration, it's just like a reverse of what happens during your inspiration. Expiration, when you breathe out, all right, you can see your diaphragm and your intercostal muscles. What happens? They relaxes. All right, you can see there's a relax, all right, and the size of the thoracic cavity will decrease, all right. It will decrease, like it will go back, it will reduce, then air flows out of the lungs. That will be the end of our lesson today. Thank you. See you in the next class.